created a device called Clever Elly, which helps you build the habit of checking the backseat. So every single time you exit the vehicle, it reminds you in a randomized way to check the backseat and output a randomized message to check the backseat. And the key there is that it's building the habit of checking the backseat. You know, if you're on vacation, your car's at the mechanic, or, you know, mum's taking the kids today, whatever it is, you're now more equipped to check the backseat. But if you become reliant on technology and the technology is not present because the batteries die, because it's getting serviced, because, you know, whatever it is, you now think it's the technology's responsibility to check for your child in the back of a car, and you're...
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Before we start the next conversation, I want to invite you to check out my amazing book, The Gift Inside, a powerful guide for healing your body, mind, and soul. Reclaim your strengths and awaken your true potential. Whether you are navigating heartbreak or simply seeking deeper fulfillment, this book offers the tools to turn your struggles into triumphs. It is time to unlock the gift within you. Available now on Amazon, or you can check it out on my website www.irinashehovtsov.com. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Michael Israel, joining us from Australia. He is currently running Clever Elly, a mission-driven startup that helps prevent hot car deaths by encouraging parents to check the backseat by building the habit of checking. Michael blends tech, empathy, and behavior change science to save lives and build safer habits for families on the go. Welcome, Michael. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Irina. That was a very kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to have a chat about the things we've got listed for today, and I'm really excited to get into it. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And I think there will be a couple things that you will find surprising, a couple things that you will find shocking, but I'm excited to delve into them.
Awesome. Just share a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So I've been working for Clever Elly for the last couple years, but I'm not so important in this. So I will speak more about the organization and what we're doing and how the organization is saving lives. Before I get into that, maybe I'll start with the story of how we came around and how we came into being.
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
So Clever Elly was founded over 7 years ago now by a group of 3 dads. One of which of those dads was my uncle. And I want to share the story of how he came around into this. And that was almost 8 years ago now. So his wife was telling him that babies have been dying in hot cars. And his first response, he's Russian as well. And his first response was a very natural response, which was to go, "Are you kidding me? Who is this happening to? That is crazy. That is ridiculous. Who forgets their kid in the back of a car? How is that even possible?" He didn't take it seriously at all. In fact, he was very much laughing it off. And then his wife was telling him, "Hey, no, you're actually the person who's very highly at risk of this. And, you know, you're very busy, you work a lot. And on top of that, you don't think you're at risk of this. You're not aware of this. That puts you at a very high level of risk in relation to forgetting your child, our child, in the back of a car." And he still didn't take it very seriously. But then fast forward a few months, he was meant to drive his son to childcare, but he started just driving towards the office. And he looked in the rearview mirror, he realized his son was in the back seat there with him, and he was shocked, and it really hit him. The situation in itself wasn't dangerous, right? He did a U-turn, he went back to childcare, dropped off his son, and then went back to the office. But it started hitting him that this is the memory lapse that everyone is talking about, you know? Imagine he didn't look in the rearview mirror, he got to the office, he went upstairs and came out at lunchtime or the end of the day. Instead of going to the office, he needed to get groceries and just quickly did that, you know. He was on the morning on the way to the childcare center. He got some important call about the thing he was working on the night before. He's really passionate about his work. He was thinking a lot about his work. And, you know, he just went to fix it. He started moving towards the office to get his things done. And, you know, it really shook him that this is what happens. So he started researching it, he started looking into it, and he started realizing that this actually happens to professionals and higher class people a lot more often than it does to lower class people. And the reason why is how it happens. And the simple answer is we don't choose what we forget. So when he started researching this and looking into it, he realized our brains can only hold 7 or 8 bits of information at a time. So as new information enters, old information falls out. So, you're focusing on parking. At the same time, one of your kids are crying. At the same time, you're focusing on a social interaction that's happening in front of you. At the same time, you're focusing on what you're doing after you park. At the same time, you're focusing on a conversation you had at work earlier on in the day, or an argument you had with a family member. At the same time, 2 or other thoughts come into your mind. It's very easy and quick to get to 7 or 8 bits of information at a time. And we've all gotten there without one of them being our child in the back of a car. We've all gotten there, but then we remember, and that's the saving grace. However, it happens where we don't. And that is how this happens so often. And I'll get into that in a second. But, you're at the 7 or 8 bits of information, unless you have a reminder either via sound, you hear your baby crying, smell, thought, you're thinking about your child in the back, smell, like I said, you open the door, you see your baby, things like this. If you don't have any of those reminders, you simply will forget. And that really shook him, because that then happens to everyone. So he started looking into things he could do and what needs to be done. He started chatting with his friends, he got together with them, and he realized that no one was doing much at all at this time. So he took 6 months off what he was currently doing to develop Clever Elly. In the beginning, it was just like a passion project on the side. All the guys still remained in their regular businesses that they ran. They're all in tech businesses. And until COVID, it was kind of just running on its own. And what they want, let me get to what they were building and what they were hoping to do. Because in the beginning, like I said, they were really techie guys, and they wanted to build this really advanced detection system. But they realized from GoFundMes and research groups that parents didn't want this at all. And there's a few reasons for that. And that really helped them, I think, get to the bottom of how to fix this issue. So there was the price. People weren't willing to spend a lot of money on this. It wasn't that they wouldn't spend $300, $400, $500 to potentially save their child's life. I think we can all agree and admit that, we'd all spend that money in a heartbeat to save our child's life. However, it was because this is against our human nature, because we already don't believe this can happen to us, to spend $300, $400, $500 on a device that helps us remember to check the back seat. It's like an admittance of guilt, and that's a big reason we thought why parents aren't willing to spend this money on the device. So we realized it needed to be super affordable. Obviously some parents also kind of thought that, but we realized it needed to be super affordable, and we realized it needed to be super simple. Parents weren't willing to take this to a mechanic to get it installed in the front of the car or in the back of the car. Parents weren't willing to have maintenance on this where they need a mechanic to check certain components and parts and get everything up to speed. They weren't willing to set up accounts and make a really complicated device, even if it was developed. So we realized that complicated devices were out of the question. We need to make it as simple as possible and as affordable as possible. And we also realized that we don't want to become reliant on this technology. We looked at the 3 main reasons this happens, and that is a change in routine, sleep deprivation, or just simple overload and sheer busyness. So we realized that we needed to make it as simple as possible. And we didn't want to become reliant on the technology. So we created a device called Clever Elly, which helps you build the habit of checking the back seat. And the key there is that it's helping you build the habit of checking the back seat. So every single time you exit the vehicle, it reminds you in a randomized way to check the back seat and output a randomized message to check the back seat. And the key there is that it's building the habit of checking the back seat. If you're on vacation, your car's at the mechanic, or, mum's taking the kids today, whatever it is, you're now more equipped to check the back seat. But if you become reliant on technology and the technology is not present because the batteries die, because it's getting serviced, because, whatever it is, you now think it's the technology's responsibility to check for your child in the back of a car, and you're not going to do it because you don't need to, My child's probably not in the back of the car because the technology is not going off, when in reality, the technology is not there. So we didn't want to make parents reliant on technology. We wanted to use it as a tool to help parents. It's constantly reinforcing that habit. You don't have to use our device. There's a lot of other free things you can do. We believe talking, that's super effective because, when you're getting out of the car, you might remember that conversation you had earlier on in the day where you were speaking about this issue, or you're speaking about how this happens, or you're speaking about the psychology behind it. And that in itself can be life-saving, you know? As you're getting out of the car, you may hopefully remember listening to this podcast. And that is your reminder, you know? That is you turning around and checking the back seat because you were thinking about this really interesting, hopefully, podcast that you were listening to earlier on in the day.
Totally. You're so right. And it's so important. And yeah, parents are busy. There are so many things going on in the mind. Gazillion, and like you said, 6 to 7, we can only hold it one time. And sometimes unfortunate things happen. And I love that, you know, what you have created, the Clever Elly. So what are some of the current technologies out there, like baby seat sensors or radar systems? And why aren't they foolproof?
So again, I kind of touched on that a little bit with the reliance on technology. I would say that's the biggest thing that sets us apart from other organizations. We've also just been around the longest, and I think over the years, because we've been around the longest, we've really learnt what the customers want, and we've really listened to the parents that have come to us. I'll touch on that a little bit more later, but specifically to answer your question, I've seen mobile apps that output a notification, but the problem is you have thousands of notifications on your phone and you're not willing to check these. There's radar technology systems. Again, they're really expensive. They're perfect or very close to perfect. You know, they're a lot more technologically advanced. But again, the issue with that is there's a lot of maintenance, there's a lot of setups, there's a lot of systems out there. No one's quite perfected it yet either. But the reason why we're not, let's say, working towards that is because we don't believe it's the solution. There's a lot of baby seat sensors out there. Often they come from car seat manufacturers who make these as an add-on, as an added feature. I've seen some run into issues with regulatory/danger issues because, you know, if you get into a crash, it can be dangerous to have sensors underneath the seat. I'm sure the bigger ones out there that are doing that are obviously compliant and whatnot, but I've heard of that being an issue. The other thing is you become reliant on the technology. You know, you don't just want the reminder going off when the baby's there, because what if then the reminder doesn't go off? Then you just assume the baby's not there, and that's so much more dangerous than having any help, because, you know, then you're even less equipped. You're deteriorating your brain's capabilities of remembering to check the back seat. I wanted to touch on as well, all new cars from 2025 have legislated now and have passed legislation to have a reminder in some form to check the back seat, which I think is an awesome, huge first step to fixing this issue. I think it shows how serious this issue is. You know, to get something legislated in the States is no easy task. So the fact that they got that with all new cars, I think is awesome. I think it's huge, but I think it's just a first step, because I have a lot of parents come to us, and most of them are our customers, who say, you know, the text on the dashboard that the car manufacturers put on, I'm not looking there. And if I can remember to look there, I could have checked the back seat. Or they hear a monotone voice, and it's like that goes into my background memory after about a week. I'm hearing the same thing, and, you know, it's the same as any other background noise that I hear throughout my day, and it doesn't effectively help me build the habit of checking the back seat, and that's why they then use a device like ours. But I do think the fact that they've legislated is a huge first step. You know, it shows how serious this issue is. Another point I like to talk about of how relatable this is near misses. You know, people focus on deaths, and deaths are terrible. You know, they're often babies under the age of 2, and they're terrible. Often have people come to us and say, you know, there's 38 or there's 40 deaths in a year in the States. You know, there's 330 plus million of you guys in the States. That's not that many. And I go, first of all, I like to speak about the fact that these are babies that have died for really no reason, for a reason that it just shouldn't have happened. So that's the first thing I like to speak about. And there's still, you know, 40 of them is still a lot. There's 40 families where it's not just the babies that have died. You know, these parents will never be the same. The siblings of these kids will never be the same. The families and friends will never be the same. Like it touches a lot more lives than just 40. The other thing I want to speak about, and this is where it really gets scary, is in Australia, there's over 5,000 rescues of, like, the fire department rescuing a child from a car. And, you know, in the States, you guys are 13 times more populated than us. So by that estimation, at least 13 times more populated than us. So by that estimation, you know, at least 65,000 rescues occur in the States every single year by that estimation. This is extremely relatable to everyone, and this happens way more often than you think all year round. You know, this doesn't just happen in summer. Yes, July now, what we're in when you're hearing this, is the busiest time, but it doesn't just happen in July. Obviously, summer is more of a busy period in relation to this, but I believe last year in the States, we saw this happen in every single month of the year. And babies freeze to death as well. So this happens all year round. I'm just going to touch on that briefly because I do want to say though that summer is still the most dangerous time of year and where we hear about the most amount of incidents, where I hear about this every single day. So I do want parents to be extra conscious and extra careful of this over the next month, 2 months, 3 months from when you hear this, as summer is still the most dangerous time. But, if this is happening 65,000 times a year, where they call them near misses, but I wouldn't call them that because, a near miss isn't a positive outcome. I feel like near miss has a almost positive connotation to it, we missed it, we saved it, it's good. But what happens if the baby has brain damage or illness or whatever other problem as a relation of being stuck in that car for just a few minutes? Yes, they were saved. That's amazing. We saved their life, but that doesn't mean everything is fixed and everything is perfect and everything just goes back to the way it was. There's still trauma on that child. That child still probably overheated to a very dangerous, level and potentially just wasn't reported, or it's not counted towards anything on a national level. But these are very dangerous outcomes and these are very dangerous scenarios. So I want parents to be extra cautious about this because this truly can and will happen to everyone. And if you don't think it can happen to you, relate it to something else. When was the last time you forgot your keys or your wallet or your phone? And that is something, again, I think we've all done that. We're all victim of that. And that's not a bad thing. That's just human nature. And as we live in a world where AI and tech become more involved in our lives, we become more distracted than ever. This is only going to keep becoming more of an issue, more prevalent in our lives. And that's why we just need to start taking action, need to start reinforcing a habit and enforcing a habit to check the backseat every time you exit the vehicle.
Yes, totally agree with you. You're so right. Let's talk behavior change. What does it take to make checking the backseat a true habit, and how does Clever Elly help people get there?
So I'll explain that. And I also wanted to apologize for just talking and talking and talking and talking. When the thoughts come in, I am a bit passionate about this, so I just
can see that.
Comes out. Building a habit, I believe, is something we all do. No, I know is something that we all do often. Some of the habits that we do are subconscious, and I like people to think about the subconscious habits that we have built in our lives. Some people have the habit where, when dinner finishes, they have dessert, no matter what. They don't even consciously think about it, but, they take something sweet. And I think that shows how, habits are a part of who we are as people, and it's what we do. It's just how we are. So a lot of the habits we build are unconscious, but I encourage people to build a very conscious habit of checking the back seat. And what we know about habit formation is that we need repetition. We need to be doing it for a certain period of time. We need to want to do it. And after we do it, the way we know is we're doing it in autopilot. We're doing it subconsciously. We're doing it without realizing it. And I think that by using Clever Elly, it's different for everyone, but by using a device like Clever Elly or by speaking about this often, we can build that habit of checking the back seat every single time we exit the vehicle. There's association involved too. As you open that driver door, that it triggers the message, and then you start associating opening the driver door with checking the back seat. So that is an element of it. So associating different things as you exit the vehicle with checking the back seat. I've seen people come up with ideas of putting like your wallet or your phone or your keys. Obviously can't do your keys if it needs to be plugged into the ignition, but if the wireless ones, you can put it on the baby seat, and then when you exit the car, you remember that. However, I do want to warn, in reality, in practicality, there have been parents who then just say, I just forget my phone on the baby seat, or I forget my wallet on the baby seat, because we can't forget these items in the exact same way. So in reality, these are good free ideas that if they're enforced in the right way can help and can work. But I do want to warn that in reality, often these end up just being extra things that we can forget. So I think the two kind of best avenues is any device that can help you build the habit of checking the backseat, or any method you can create in your life. And you can can create these for free in different ways, and I'll touch on that in a second. But any habit you can build. And then the second one is just talking about it. I think talking about it is so overpowering, and it helps so much, And at the same time, by talking about it, you're educating other people around the information you're hearing in this podcast, around how our brains can only hold 7 or 8 bits of information at a time, around how, there's 65,000 rescues related to this every single year, and how severe this issue is. So by talking about it, you're helping other people, but you're also helping yourself. You're also helping, because every single time you speak to someone, they'll come up with a new idea. They'll come up with a new concept. They'll ask a question. They'll come up with something within this space that will help. And that's why I put my email address below my name there, because I strongly encourage anyone to reach out with any ideas, any concepts, anything they have around this, because we're constantly innovating, looking for different ways and better ways of doing this. We encourage people to build more devices and more concepts around habit formation, because we don't believe enough people are doing it. We're doing the best we can, but we know there are plenty of brilliant people out there, and we encourage them to reach out, and we will help. And if they want to do it themselves, we will give the feedback we've learnt and the information we've learnt over the years, because we just want to make a real difference in this space.
Awesome. Very well said. For parents listening right now, what one action they can take, one simple step that they can take today to protect their child?
I think talking, you can implement that 10 minutes after this podcast. You leave this room, you leave wherever you're listening to this podcast and listening in from, go speak to your partner about this. Just start with that. Go speak to your parents about this. Go speak to anyone else in your life that you live with or work with, or that is near you, your best friend, whoever is close to you that you think would enjoy a conversation like this. Go have a chat with them about it. I think we all have the capability of doing that. And I think that is very underrated, how powerful a simple conversation can be. Another reason why I included my email address under there, michael.i@cleverelly.com, if you're listening and can't see the image here, Cleverelly, CLEVERELLY.com, is because I have infographics, I have brochures, I have slideshows, I have stuff I can email it to you. You can hang it up on corners around your community, around your suburbs, in areas where babies are, in childcare centers, in the local hospitals, pediatricians, OBGYNs, any of these kind of facilities or areas. We can hang up these signs and this information to educate people and educate parents. There is so much we can do for free. As well, if you are wanting to become like a partner of ours and help distribute these products, we can reach out as well. You can get paid commissions, you can get paid whatever it is to incentivize you to put your time into this, because without that, you're obviously not going to have as many people be willing and able. We understand, you need to put food on the table, and you need to make money to do that. So we're very willing to pay commissions to people to get these devices out there and into communities. We've seen these distributed through hospitals who hand them out postpartum to all new parents, in a gift package as they leave the hospital. Childcare centers, non-for-profits, they buy these and they hand them out to communities that they service. Obviously, all non-for-profits have different missions and different statements, but this falls into a lot of different non-for-profits, especially ones around kids and doing good for communities. There is law enforcement, there is schools, I'm just trying to brainstorm off the top of my head here, different ways, pharmacies, supermarkets. I'm getting more broad here, but there are heaps and heaps. I know heaps is an Australian word. Sorry, I should refrain from using that. There are lots and lots and lots and lots of different avenues and ways and areas where this device can be distributed and used functionally. And I encourage anyone with any ideas, like I said again, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So best way to connect with you is to use your email. Is there a website people can go to if they want to learn more?
Yes, Cleverelly, CLEVERELLY.com. On the website, you can purchase the product. We have a blog page. We have lots of information and articles on there. Read through. Probably won't get through all of them. There's a lot, but read through a few of them. We're on Amazon now as well. You can purchase this on Amazon if you're wanting it a little bit quicker. It is a bit quicker on Amazon. And yeah, I just very much encourage everyone to take action. And I think that, awareness that we've seen over the last 8 years in the education is important. It is the first step, but it's exactly that. It's a first step. And to really fix this issue, we need to enforce that behavioral change. We like to compare this as well, which I haven't touched on at all yet, is to seatbelts. In the 70s, we look at the media articles and newspaper articles that were out there and compare them to the articles that we have now around this, and it's so similar. It's very funny and interesting, actually, how similar people's response is and the process of it. And we very much think we're at kind of the end of that awareness cycle where people know about this now right before this starts to become implemented, and we believe we're at that area where this thing can really scale up now over the next few years and really be implemented in cars all over the world. And yes, we focus a lot on America, but all over the world we can grow this and grow the fixing of this issue. And we like to compare the idea of how we have the habit of putting on a seatbelt every single time we enter the car is the same way we have the habit of checking the back seat every single time we exit the car. And we're trying to copy almost how seatbelts were implemented to how we want to implement the idea of checking the back seat every single time you exit the vehicle.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
No, I think I pretty much covered it. I'm going to say it the last time. I know I've been super annoying. Reach out to hear from anyone with any ideas. I'd love to hear from parents within communities. I'd love to support you. If I send you the infographics, it's obviously a lot cheaper to print it locally than send it from Australia. It's probably 10 times the price in shipping, but print it locally. I'll reimburse you for the shipping, for the printing costs to hang them up within your communities. It doesn't cost you a cent. And I think that is a very effective way of really helping to save lives and really helping to get these, units out there and really save lives. I'd also like to just thank everyone for listening in and being here for this entire podcast and hearing this out and sitting down for such an important topic. I think just by listening to this shows you how dedicated you are and how loving you are as a parent that you're willing to dive into a podcast like this. And Irina, I'd like to thank you so much for creating a space like this where parents can listen to information like this. But the people listening to this podcast and you, Irina, are obviously already in that really top high percentage of caring parents and loving parents. And if you think about consciously in your lives times where you have forgotten something and are really aware of times that you've forgotten something, you can realize that, hopefully this never happens to you, but this could happen to you and this could happen to anyone. And thank you everyone for listening in again, and thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of your days wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing at this time.
Thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Irina.